welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television International, your winning station, news and current affair program where we keep you up to date with what is happening from our Nigerian newspaper. I am Sada Elisha Dasham and Rachel Tanzi is with me. Good morning.
Morning, Sada. How you doing? I'm fine. How about you?
Fine, thank you. Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday.
Of course. Yes. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. Do well to drop your comments or your contribution on any story that is of interest to you. We have a lot of stories on the paper. We've seen that there was a bill that was saying Nigerians that are in Sudan should be brought back, and we've seen that quite a number of them have been uplifted. And then we still have the issue of the Adamawa, saga, where the president has given the go-ahead for the prosecution of the, looking at the rec that actually announced the results of the Adamawa results. So these are many other stories that what we will be looking at on the papers this morning. And let us start with the first news, which Rachel will be taking us down the paper.
On First News newspaper, Salah message, I'm ready to work with all Nigerians. Tinubu seeks more patriotism. INEC denies Binani's claim of collusion with Adamawa government, declares her claim as mischief and fabrication. Transitional will be peaceful, coming from the defense headquarters assuring Nigerians. Presidential Committee Tinubu appoints Yar'Adua, Kyari, Onuga, and 11 others. And the big story on the First News newspaper, Buhari approves REC suspension, persecution, other security chiefs probe. This is still on Adamawa, and directs IGP, DSS, DG, and SCDC boss to investigate their officers' role in aiding and abetting the REC's conduct. Still on the First News newspaper, leadership tussle stirs dispute in Ohanese's Indibo as Elders Council disowns Nwayawu as President General declares his emergence illegal. And at the downside of the paper, Obi's supporter who caused tear at Abuja airport remanded in prison. And on insecurity, you failed woefully, Otom hits back at Buhari. And we have jollof rice condiment prices increases by 9.7%. This is a report due to the high increase of the price of rice. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper with a big story, why Buhari is after me, coming from Otto, with the writer saying, President against me over anti-grazing law. You can find that story on page 6. Federal government concession on each port for 30 years, which you can also find inside the paper. Other stories on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper, election outcome in line with my pledge. I take that story, election outcome in line with my pledge, legacy of free and fair polls, coming from Buhari. And on the Salah, we have Tinubu, Obi, Saraki, Kalu, Onuga, Bello, preach peace, unity, and rule of law. With IGP, with the writer saying IGP orders tight security on praying grounds. So you can read more of that story on page 34. Federal government withdraws immigration case against Seplet CEO. Nigeria has second highest unvaccinated children. This is a report coming from UNICEF, and you can find more of that story on page 6. And on the issue of Adamawa, we have Buhari approved suspension of INEC REC ARI, with the writer saying orders investigation of police, DSS, and SPD officials, which you can find on page 35. IMF projection economic stacks Tinubu on speedy economic growth. Ukraine president invite president-elect, and we hope that they'll be able to reason on how to boost our economy. You can find more of that story on page 33. Downside of the paper, jubilation as Nigeria begins direct flight to Israel. You can find more of that story on page 34. We have a picture story where we see the group managing director, CEO of the United Bank of Africa, Mr. Oliver, and Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State during the visit of the bank's management to the governor in Lagos yesterday. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, despite Express Center's corruption racketeering hobble passport application process, And on Eid al-Fitr, continue Ramadan values, be modest, vigilant, Sultan IGP DSS tells Nigerians. And still on Adamawa poll, INEC denies partisanship as Falana urges NBC to sanction NTA. You can read more of the details on page 3. India, Nigeria top in children lacking single routine vaccination. You can read more of that on page 3. And then we have a picture story which we've seen on the previous paper where we can see the group managing director of the United Bank of Africa and then the governor of Lagos State. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On this day newspaper, NUPRC, Nigeria's oil reserve fell by 0.22%, gas pool rose 0.10% in 2022. The big story here says Buhari orders immediate suspension of Adamawa wreck, direct IG police to prosecute and battle officer if found liable, and seek investigation of the DSS, NSDC, and the officials. Coming from Falana Binani, its couplet could be investigated, insists her acceptance speech confirmed she was party to illegal announcement, urges NBC to sanction NTA for airing her acceptance speech. You can find more of that story on the front page and inside the paper. Assets holding post 15 trillion naira total asset gross earning hits 1.4 trillion naira, which you can find on pages 12. President in Salah message says 2023 poll so transparent his party lost ground in many states. You can find more of that story. We have some picture stories that are under that, where we have Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, Saraki, Bajabia, Mira, governors and others great Muslims. Preach peace, love, unity, social injustice as Eid Fadir. And then we have police and NSCDC, FRSC gear up for eventualities during the celebration. So you can find more of that story too. And we have a picture story unveiling only Pan-African Businesses and Investment Initiative. You can do well to read more of that picture story. Tinubu replies presidential transition Council submit 13 names to inauguration subcommittee. You can find more of that story too inside the paper. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Nature newspaper, federal government develops action plan for gender mainstreaming policy in water sector. And the big story, Nigeria's future lies in blue economy. This is coming from the NIMASA DG. You can find the details on page 3. NESREA seals Benue ethanol plant tax facilities on environmental compliance. Biden pledges $1 billion to International Climate Fund. You can start with the story on the front page and continue on page 5. Oil and Gas Opportunity Fair, NCDMB plans focus on linkage sectors. You can find the details on page 6. Report rates Kenya high in generating electricity from wind and solar. Surgeon facts and health benefits. You can find the details on page 15. At the downside of the paper, we have on sports Tiger Woods' ankle injury in New York successful, and you can find the details on page 21. We have a picture story from left to right. The Director General, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, and the Dr. Bashir Jamok receiving a plaque from the first Chancellor Deputy Head of Delegation, European Union. And that's all the news on Nature News.
On Nigerian News Direct, Access Holding announced 1.4 trillion gross earning, which you can find on page 13 of Nigerian News Direct newspaper. We have Nigerian immigration withdraws suit against Seplat Energy. And on court judgment, 1.49 trillion naira debt threatening Union Bank stability, which you can find on page 14. The big story for Nigerian News Direct, PIA implementation, and NPC targets $50 billion investment to unlock potential, attributes growth of the FDIs to PIA implementation, which you can find on page 16. And we have on May 29 inauguration, Tinubu makes more nomination into transition committee, which you can find inside the paper. And we have Lagos state government pays 5 billion naira accrued pension, pledges safe retirement and welfare. And we have a herbalist allegedly torture and starve 2 biological children to death in Ogun State. Another story here, we have allegation of monetary inducement of Supreme Court Justice Oshun APC caution Timmy Frank. You can find more of that story. We have 2 picture story on the front page of the paper. Do well to grab the paper and read more detail of stories that are of interest to you.
On Daily Independent, we didn't compromise Adamawa governorship election. Statement coming from INEC. Even in the face of provocations, remain calm, Obi tells supporters. Abure orders no fake May 12 over Labour Party's leadership tussle. And the big story on Daily Independent, Buhari failed woefully in securing Nigeria. This is coming from Otom. The writer following that story says president endorses insecurity killings in Benue. Emboldened Fulani pastoralists in their expansionist agenda. The end yet to be heard of 2023 presidential poll. This is a statement coming from the IPAC chairman. Buhari suspends controversial Adamawa wreck. Nigerian students trapped in Sudan fighting seek evacuation. May 29 handover date remains sacrosanct. The military is assuring Nigerians. Tinubu announcing 13-member presidential inauguration committee. Diri orders prosecution of headers for preaching anti-grazing law. The details can be found on page 6. Still on the Daily Independent, no specific date yet to remove fuel subsidy. This is coming from the federal government. At the downside of the paper, we have 2023 election was transparent, says Buhari. You can find the details of that statement on page 7. And that's all the news on Daily Independent.
A New Telegraph newspaper, cash crisis push mobile transaction to 4.1 trillion naira in March, which you can find the story on the front page and more inside the paper. And we have other stories still on the New Telegraph, where we have $2.4 billion oil probe. Balami agrees to honor reps and was reps summons. You can find that story on page 7. Coming from Okoa, my road bridge project span over 2,000 kilometers, which you can find on page 7. And on the killings, presidency statement reckless, coming from Autumn. And we have Nigeria-China trade volume hit $12.03 billion, coming from the finance ministry. You can read that story on page 2 and 7 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Other story on the paper we have on Lekki Port, federal government targets 23.1 billion naira from ship towage service. And we have the big story, Salah transition, DSS fuels plan attack on northern state, NAPS gunmen in Kano, IGP orders tight security nationwide, military intelligence community will contain threat to peace and security, coming from the defense headquarters, and says follow-up operation ongoing presently. So you can read more of that story on page 2, 3, and 6. Nigerians upstream expenditure crashed from $27 billion to below $6 billion in 8 years, coming from the NUPRC, which you can read more on page 7. Rainstorm flood kills 7 and injured dozens in Delta State. You can find that on page 6 and 29. National Assembly begins induction for senators and members-elect next month. You can find that story on page 7. And on concerning the Adamawa governorship election, Buhari approves REC UNISA Ari suspension. You can find that story on page 3 and 7 too. And on the Salah celebration, Buhari, Lawan, Kalu, Tinubu, Atiku, Sanwo-Olu, Obi, Makinde, and others facilitate with Muslims, preaches peace, unity, and patriotism. Sultan declares today Eid Fadil Day. You can find that on page 3, 6, and 26. We have a study down here that says finds gray hair can regain pigment. You want to know more about that? You can find that story on page 28. We have a picture story where we have the CBN governor with other stakeholders. If you want to know more about that story, do well to get the New Telegraph and read more stories of interest to you.
On New National Star, North should steer clear of National Assembly leadership. This is a statement coming from Idoma Eba. You can find the details on page 25. FEG approves 3.47 billion naira surveillance aircraft for customs. This is to help with the issues of smuggling. The details can be found on page 8. INEC denies complicity in Adamawa supplementary election. And the big story on National Star, Buhari endorsed Benue mass murder. A statement coming from Autumn says president failed woefully. 68 killed, 15 injured in Kaduna communities in 1 month. The details can be found on page 2. Amidst financial crunch, federal government to spend billions training National Assembly first-timers as induction holds May 7 to 20th. You can find the details on page 2. Hippopotamus kill pregnant woman in Benue. Buhari approves Adamawa Rec suspension. The writer following that says, asks police, DSS, NSCDC to investigate officers' role. The details can be found on page 26, and that's all the news on New National Star.
No, Rachel, I'd like us to look at this amidst the financial crunch.
Yes.
Federal government to spend billions training National Assembly first-timers. Of course, we know we're on red alert now, and then questions will begin to come up with the fact that why do we need to train them?
Yes,
Before you actually vie for that position, you suppose or it's expected that you know what you are signing into. You are supposed to know what is involved. You are supposed to know, because you're not just going there for the first time. If you are going there as a senator, maybe you were one time a governor, or maybe you were one time a House of Reps, and then you know how all the intrigues of all of those things are involved. But we can see that billions will be used to, you know, to train them, and questions will begin to. We have a lot of things that need money. We've been looking at right now on the papers. We saw that federal government say no date has been set yet for removal of fuel subsidy. But subsequently, we saw where it was speculations where in June, and then later it was taken back that it will be before, you know, June. It will be in May. And now we can see that no date. Of course, we saw where the Labour came out to say that we're not yet ready. Rather than doing that, why don't we fix our refineries? And that is the only way it will show that we're ready to remove the subsidy. Because, of course, if you remove the first subsidy, you know how much. If presently that is not yet removed, we're seeing that we're buying petrol a litre at about 400 naira. There was a time when we had adulterated fuel, and then when there was scarcity and all of those things. So a lot needs to go into reprioritizing things properly, because that is where I can make sense out of this story, where we're seeing that we are lacking, we're running on red alert. Yesterday we even saw, I think earlier before yesterday, we saw where we said we're defaulting our payment of our debt to China. And yesterday we saw still the report saying that no, we are not defaulting our payment. And then we wouldn't deny the fact that we are still running on deficit in this country, because even our budget was over. We don't even have the money, and then we're saying we want to train them. What you begin to ask questions, what are we training them for? And people have come up, we've seen over the years, people have analyzed the payments that some of our House of Assembly members collect. And if you look at some of their housing allowance, some of all of their allowance, it's enough to do so much for the country. Looking at the cars they ride and all of those things. But that is not to say that our lawmakers do not deserve to be well taken care of. They do. But they're not at the detriment of a whole nation that is lavishing in property. Are we going to poverty? Are we going to look at the statistics of out-of-school children as a result of insecurity?
We're seeing vaccines now from the World Health Organization saying that Nigeria has the lowest, high population of children who don't get access to regular and even normal vaccines. These are some of the little things, Sele, and I'm sorry to cut you short, Sele, but everything you're saying is right in place. And I'll keep saying this until we have a government, until we have leaders, until we have administrations that are willing to make proper sacrifices for the growth of Nigeria, Sele, we will see little or no growth. We will keep being stagnant, because you know what? Let's be realistic. there's nothing wrong with the training for first timer, because I want to believe every institution have the way they function. So when you come to a new place, it's okay for orientation, it's okay for guidelines, it's okay to tell you that, you know what, things are different. This is not a state national assembly. This is how we do things in the National Assembly. This is not your local government. Now you're in the federal government. Things are done differently. But why must our expenditures be running in billions and we never get to see an adequate breakdown of exactly what these billions were used for? Meaning automatically we have a system that disregards transparency. We have a system that disregards accountability, because you can't just vaguely say billions and we don't know how many billions and what precisely in that training is going to consume this much billions that you're talking about. We need to understand what are the resources that are put into this training that warrants it to amount to billions. Are you buying resources? Are you buying, what are you giving materials? And if you're giving, what are the things that are going to amount for this training to cost billions of naira? Looking at the so many things that we have to do in Nigeria, and we can't overemphasize on how much is being given to them in allowances and all of that. And you sit down and you wonder that all of these things are being sponsored by debt, not by the revenue we generate. Virtually everything we borrow to pay salaries, we borrow for allowances, and we are lavishing this debt, not trying to invest it and build more revenue out of it. And to add up on concerning the first subsidy, we're seeing a situation where we have already taken $800 million from the World Bank that we have to pay in 25 years as a palliative. And amidst all of these loans, left, right, centers, and debt, you are going to have a training in billions, and billions where there is no breakdown of exactly where these billions and how it's going to be used and all of that. So say, honestly, I am looking forward to a system of government where we will have leaders truly that are willing to make the sacrifice and put things in place and not be selfish and be like, it is my turn, I must eat from this national cake. What Nigerians don't understand, this national cake is everybody's money. When you see the breakdown of how taxes are being collected, we saw how the custom and the Federal Inland Revenue Service have generated trillions in revenue for the federal government. And where are these trillions coming from? They are coming from you and me, Sele, from our taxes, from businesses paying their tax, from businesses paying their revenue, from everybody consuming one product or another. So why would somebody sit down and feel it is their turn to eat the national cake? A national cake that comprises, that is the contribution of over 200 million citizens of Nigeria. So it's high time we truly have a system that will be accountable, transparent, and open, and will not be selfish, and will truly say, you know what, it's about time we prioritize our expenses as a country, because we keep lavishing borrowed funds and not generating income for a country. Until we come to that position, we will see little or no growth in our economy, and we will keep having a debt profile that will take decades for us to pay. And I don't want such a Nigeria, and I hope we have a government that works on that.
Actually, you know, when you make emphasis on us running on debt, looking at the fact that we've spent 96% of our revenue, you know, actually paying debt, and then we're left with just 4%, and 4%, of course, will not be able to do anything. We've seen that even on the paper is saying the induction will hold from May 7th to 20th, right? So that's when the training is hoping to hold for them. We're still waiting for an audit coming from INEC, what they spend over those billions of naira during the election. Hopefully, when census is over, we'll be waiting for an audit also. What did they use the money to? Because census is supposed to start, I think, May 3rd or so was the date for that. So a lot will be going into it. So we just hope to see more being done in regards to that. Well, before we move further to other paper review, let us take a break so we can let you through the story. What do you feel about, you know, the billions that will be used for training the first timers in the National House of Assembly? Already we've seen even the president has given the go-ahead for investigation of the wreck of Adamawa State, and then a lot of stories are, you know, actually flying on our papers this morning. So we'll just let you, you know, take some break through the stories, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been making, the rounds on most of our papers, especially looking at the fact that Muslims celebrating the Sadler, and then we've seen emphasis coming from various, political bodies, and even coming from the Sultan preaching peace and also unity at a time like this. Also, the president has given the go-ahead for investigation of the Adamawa wreck and also suspension, and we've seen even coming from Benue State, where Governor Otom is of the opinion that a lot is going on in his state, and then the part that he feels the president is playing. So these are many other stories that were on the paper. So at this moment, our phone numbers are displayed on your screen. You could do well to call us, please. Do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, or you move totally away, because we love to hear what you have to say, and other viewers are also interested in what you have to say. We're live at Facebook and YouTube. You can also drop your comment there, just in case you're unable to get to reach us on, by calling us, and then a lot of things happening. So we'd love to hear from you. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning,
Good morning.
sir. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Is that Equa TV?
Yes, sir. It's Equa TV. Please go on with your comments.
Okay, my name is Pastor Albert. I'm calling from Boko in Benue State.
All right, go on, sir.
All right, my comment is on the president approving the suspension of the wreck of Adamawa State. I'm surprised to hear that president approves the suspension. Initially, the INEC said they suspended him. So I don't know how many suspensions the man will get. And again, I saw that there were police officers with that man and even DSS. I expected that anybody that was committing crime and police officers saw the person committing crime, the person is supposed to be arrested and should not wait for order from anybody. Is it because it's an INEC personnel, or because it's a wreck? If an individual, ordinary citizen, is committing a crime and police sees the person, will police not arrest the person immediately? This man committed a crime brazenly in the public, and he was supposed to be arrested and be in detention. Then message could be sent to the presidency that this is what this person have done and he's under detention. Then this is what's supposed to be. Now president have approved the suspension. So what comes next? And also the police officer and the DSS that were there, they're supposed also to go the same way. They're supposed to be suspended and also proved, because they all committed the crime together. That's my comment this morning. God bless you.
Thank you so
very
much,
much
sir,
for
for
that
that beautiful contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just go further with the newspaper review, looking at the Punch newspaper. The big story on the Punch is on Sultan conflict. 1,262 Nigerian students demand evacuation, 330 residents killed. The right of the story, we have Nigerian student feel form of airlifting, Uganda, Tanzania rescue nationals. 3,200 injured as outrage, food, water security hit Qatar, says the World Health Organization. And I think I have a little I would like to read under that story. The clash has also dispersed. Okay, let's start from the first story. Nigerian students, numbering about 1,262, have appealed to the federal government to evacuate them from the Republic of Sultan, where a phasing military confrontation between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Force has claimed 330 lives with 3,200 injured. The Secretary General of the National Association of Nigerian Students, Sultan Adam Mohammed, who said this in an interview with The Punch on Thursday, lamented that many students had run out of food. The clash has also displaced thousands of civilians who fled the capital, Khartoum, even as some foreign nationals, including Japan, Uganda, and Tanzania, has begun evacuating. All right, we have a call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
We are with you. Good morning.
Okay, my name is Asama calling from Abuja.
All right, go on, sir.
Hello.
Go on, we are with you. Go on.
Okay, I want to react to the headline that we're talking about money for INEC for the 2023 general elections. Hello?
Yes, we
Yes,
are
we
with
can
you.
hear
Just
you.
go on, sir.
Okay, you see, this is not the first general election held in Nigeria since independence. Why are people reacting to this particular one is because it felt that this was the opposite of what we expected. You said this is what should be done, and you ahead and go the other way, like doing the opposite. Result will be transmitted, result was never transmitted. Everything, we're going back, the same people that we are giving this amount of money, coming back to say Nigeria, and maybe some of the other staff were not well trained. Whose fault is that? Is it Nigeria that just some of the staff were not well trained, where you were giving this amount of money? It's because of the large amount of failure that people experience from INEC. That is what they're talking about this particular one. Because INEC has been there for ages. Election has been there for ages. They have been giving money to previous people, INEC chairman, that they got up all that to run an election. Well, nobody really talk about they need to give an account of how this money was spent. It's because of the failure of this so-called INEC chairman, because of the failure of him, this president, when people are talking about, people are looking back to what was given, how it was spent. So I don't know. This issue of state, local government, and everything in this particular election, I don't know where we will stop talking about it, because you just look at it, it's just more of selection, not election, that I did give us this time around.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that contribution. Let us continue with the newspaper review on the Punch, where we're still looking at the clash in Sultan, where I was reading, and the call for help coming from the Sultan student, where we saw the clash has also displaced thousands of civilians who flee the capital, Khartoum, even as some foreign nationals, including Japan, Uganda, and Tanzania, has begun evacuating their nationals, as the violence, which started on April 8, entered its 12th day on Thursday. Until recently, the Sudanese armed forces, led by General Abdel al-Burhan, and the RF's paramilitary group, headed by General Mohammed Gogalu, were allies. They worked together in 2019 in a popular uprising that overthrew Sultan Bhuta. All right. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. We're fine.
My name is Felix. I'm calling from the Republic.
All right, go on,
so
sir.
The first day I made a comment saying this thing they are doing is a planned deal. But people do not understand. Let me tell you people, this thing they say Buhari want to say arrest of them. Why can't Buhari arrest INEC chairman? With all this atrocity, all these things where they do. Instead, I see you, is the prayers. My people, let us continue praying. God is telling them that I'm the God of Abraham. I will not let my people, I don't let my people to suffer. We are going to prompt to them, all of them confess. Yeah, they will confess, whether they like it or not. Because Nigeria is not for stupid people, it is for people that know God. And I know that God is that we pray every day, answered prayer. God is telling us that He is with us, and He must be with us forever. So let nobody fear. I know that this our mandate, we must reclaim it. All of us in the Republic, in Togo, Burkina, we are praying. Everybody is praying. Nothing they can do, and they take this one. If they take this one there, the wrath of God, which let the ask what will happen to Pharaoh. Let them read Bible and see what they want to do. It will happen in Nigeria. People will not say that God is God. Let them take. So what they say they are doing, arrest this man. Why can't you start from the beginning? Arrest that INEC chairman. They do not allow you ask. What did they ask them to go to court? So my people, let us continue to pray. I know that with force we cannot do anything, but with God, all things are possible. But I know that if they take this one there, you will see what will happen in Nigeria. God will not allow them. What happened to the people of Pharaoh will happen to them. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. From your voice, it's actually a lot of, will I say,
yes. Emotions,
of course, Rachel.
True.
And
And we should pray, Sele. Of course, we have to keep praying and taking authority as Nigerians, as Christians, as believers, that God will hear us out, and then this kind of injustice and mishappenings that shouldn't even happen in the first place will stop. So we'll just keep trusting God, and then believing that those in the position to do something about this situation, that God will use them to do the right thing.
Of course, Rachel, it's one thing for us to pray, but it's another thing for us to work towards it. I keep saying, leaders are, permit me to use the word, they are nobody without their followers.
Of course,
if there are no followers,
you can't
what are you doing as a leader?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is where your strength is being shown by what your followers do. And we've seen that over time, followers are beginning to realize their place, their power. And so in as much as we'll keep emphasizing, let us pray, but let us also know we have a part to play, to hold them accountable for everything they do. We keep saying back was then where after a tenure we give you another another 4 years for you to prove yours. You know, Nigerians have this time around are up and say no. In fact, we don't think. I think we have another call. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Morning. How are you? My name is Daniel. I am calling from Borno State.
All right, please go on with your comments or your contribution.
Yeah, I want to comment on the issue on how Mr. President has been approved to arrest the wreck from Adamawa State. My comment on that is that we know we are playing, the president are thinking that they are playing games. But one thing we know that our God, we serve the living God. Anything you do in this life, there is God, and God is watching. So if you want to do justice to all. It's not about what you do, but it's about what you will receive after. So God is watching. Let's do justice to all Nigerians, and God will reward us handsomely in Jesus' name.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Rachel, still in relation to that, you know, before the calls came, I was trying to read on the issue of the fight in Sudan. And we need to learn our lessons, Rachel. The reason why I'm saying that, yes, of course, when there is a war or a crisis in any part of the country in the world, it has a way of affecting other countries that are around there.
It does.
But then we keep having cases where, okay, right now we see there's a call for save our soul coming from Nigerians that are schooling in Sudan. Because we've seen the likes of Japan, Uganda, Tanzania have started evacuating home. And this was the same case we had when we started when the war between Russia and Ukraine started, where there was a call for help, and then we saw that there was a swift action coming from the House of Representatives, where they gave, in fact, they didn't even go through so much deliberation immediately. And we saw just recently on the paper, Nigerians are still coming back from Chad and Libya. Right now, we still have to spend resources again to go uplift Nigerians. And I keep saying it's a sad situation that's happening in Sudan. We saw even the president have kept, calling on whatever the rivalry is. They should try to settle it so we don't have an escalation affecting other parts of the country. But this should be an eye-opener. If our country was fixed, we'll not be having so much of Nigerians schooling outside the shore of this country. That is the point I'm trying to point out. Because we saw that as a result of that war, not only did it affect those who are schooling there, we had issue because there were food crises where we didn't have cereal. We're complaining of something as little as rice, looking at wheat, floor. These are things that we have the fertile ground to have all of these things. But we were depending on other nations, and because of the war, we were complaining. And this should not be heard of anywhere. So we have all that it takes to build the agricultural sector, build the educational sector, build our health sector, build every sector that really needs so much of attention. So in as much as we are hoping and other nations are calling on the settle of whatever issue it is they are having in Sudan, this should be a time where, as a government, as an administration, you need to sit down and see what can we do to improve our country. What can we do to make sure the environment is palatable, so we don't keep having our students going outside the country to study, and then where there is a problem, we're now looking for another resources that we do not have to bring them back home. So let us make home for Nigerians, so they don't find home outside the country. So we hope that will be looked into by the government.
Sele, when I saw that Nigerians are in Sudan and the government are trying to bring them back, I started thinking, what are Nigerians doing in Sudan? Because Sudan has been a struggling country for a very long period of time. It hasn't been one of those stable economies that we can say for South Africa, for Libya, and for countries like Kenya that I know are doing well, and we can say, yes, it's fine if you go there to study or if you find greener pasture. But then you hear that Nigerians are in Sudan, and then you wonder, are they trying to say that Sudan is way better than Nigeria, or what is happening? But you find out that we are so desperate to leave home to a better place, and we always end up falling into a larger trap and situations that we wouldn't even in the first place. So as you keep emphasizing, Sele, just the same thing I would say, let us make Nigeria a better place. We have everything that takes. We have everything it takes to make Nigeria a place where nobody would want to live. We have everything it takes to take Nigeria to the next level where we will have people wanting to come. I'm looking forward to a government that will put in a consistent amount of work into making Nigeria what it should be, that we will be the ones now saying foreigners are disturbing us. We will be the one cashing out from people coming to school in Nigeria. We'll be the one cashing out from tourism. We will be the one having investors that we might even have to reject some because we have been overloaded by so much request and all of that. We can do that. And I am looking forward to Nigeria getting that and witnessing some of it, because I keep saying growth doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, but we have to be consistent and deliberate concerning that growth that we want to see for the country.
Of course, Richard. Let's look at other stories still on the Punch. Buhari suspend Adamawa wreck, other security agent probe, which you can find inside the paper. We also have IOC move $21 billion investment to other countries coming from the federal government. Military will ensure peaceful handover May 29, says the defense headquarters. You can also find that story inside the paper. And we have the picture story here where we can see moon sighted in Saudi Arabia. Muslims mark Eid al-Fitr on Friday, which is today. National Assembly induced lawmakers elect May 7. You can find more of that story. Banana Island developer plan to rake in 22 billion naira revenue. This is a report. We could remember the collapse of some of the buildings over there. So you can read more of that report on page 21. We have Ogun community 1 year blackout lingers over the IKEDC, IBEDC disagreement. You can find that story on page 4 and 5 of the Punch, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
In our world of sports, on Sporting Sun, we have Saudi to deport Ronaldo if. So you can find the details on the back page of the paper. Old lady dumps out Sporting. We can see that for the Europa League, we can see Sporting winning 1, Juventus 1, and the aggregate is 1-2. Sevilla 3, Man United 0. Man U are out of the Europa League, and then Sevilla moves to the semi-final. And the big story, League One award, Murphy eyes Enyema Oshimen's record. Battles Hakimi for Best African Player Plague, and you can find the details on page 6. Gent Chief give Auburn not for sale. And on transfer of Hakimi's world, I'm unaware, says the mother. And FIFA Under-20 World Cup Flying Eagles land in Port 3. And you can find the details on page 6. We have UEFA Champions League exit, Sane breaks down in tears. The chosen one, Saka named Arsenal penalty taker. Ahead of UEFA Champions League semi-final clash, it's vengeance or nothing. This is coming from Silva. He's telling Real Madrid, and you can find the details on the back page. He's coming back. Barca finalizing contract with Messi. Onuachu that full of for Arsenal clash, and then we have Benzema signs contract extension at Real Madrid. You can find the details at the back page of the papers, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun.
All right, let's just round it up with the Business Day newspaper. Renewable energy scene giving SMEs edge post petrol subsidy. You can find that story inside the paper. Does diplomatic passport confer citizenship? You can read more of that and see what does that mean. Also, we have Nigeria faces gas crunch amid rising demand. You can find that story on page 21. And we have on Benue, Kaduna, killings compound Nigeria's food crisis. Naira in circulation jumped to 71% in March. And then we have downside Unilever exit from home skincare market offers lessons. You can read that story on the front page and continue to read more on page 30. We have a picture story too. You can do well to read more of that story, and that's all on Business Day, and also how far we can go on the program this morning. Thanks, Rachel, for doing this with me. Thank you to our crew members, our producer, the GM, and also to the ECHO executive. Thank you to all who called in this morning to contribute to what is happening in the nation, and also provide some of the recommendation, solution, and how we can be a better country. Until we come your way again next week, please do remember to be peaceful, stay out of trouble, and be your brother's keeper. Have a blessed weekend ahead.